to start. Again, for those of you who don't know me, or if this is your first day joining us, my name is Allison Lynch. I'm with the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and I have Francine with us here too. Francine, if you want to say hi again real quick, that would be great.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you so much. We wanted to talk to you a little bit and give you some tips and tricks on classroom etiquette. So based on the pre-survey that you took, you sort of know what to expect, right, in the classroom. But this first slide is for our international students, but it's also kind of helpful for everybody. So we wanted to include this here for this full session. In terms of what classrooms are like in the US, you can see a photo here. This is in McGovern on South Campus in a building. And you can see that the classroom setting is very intimate. And depending on the professor would also perhaps ask you to call them by their first name if they prefer it. We know in some cultures that there is an issue of seniority, right? And so usually in the US, the professor would prefer if you call them by their first name. They might prefer doctor in front of that, whatever they prefer, but just ask them if you're unsure about that beforehand. You can also politely interrupt the professor just to ask questions by simply raising your hand. If that is something that you have a burning question, you don't have to wait. You can just simply raise your hand. The professor really likes that. You have a portion of your grade that is discussion based. So we're encouraging you to please speak up in class because it counts towards your grade, usually about 5 to 10%. And that will be listed in your syllabus that we are going to be talking about in a little bit today. Also, don't be afraid to challenge the viewpoints respectfully of either the professor or your other classmates. Discussion and sort of a debate is really encouraged in the US classrooms. In terms of student-professor relationships, again, professors are very approachable and willing to help and to give their free time. So usually they have free open office hours, kind of like how we have an open office hour sort of during the lunch hour here. They have open office hours either virtually or probably mostly virtually this fall, but usually in person. Where you can go in and ask any questions that you'd like. You can email them, you can call them. That is sort of an open time for you to ask any questions. They are most likely to make the class fun, right? And they rely on your participation to enhance the class. The great thing about UMass Lowell is that the class sizes are usually pretty small unless it's a larger lecture hall. So you do have a chance to get to know your professor. I know many international students who in their old universities never got to know their professor personally, and they never really got to know them, even on a first name basis. So here in the US, we really, really encourage you to please talk to your professor often and your classmates. Take advantage of this situation, especially when you are going to be graded on the discussion points as well. So we did just want to mention plagiarism. So for those of you who don't know what plagiarism is, I included a definition in here. So it's using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of other authors without authorization or citation. And so in the US, this is very serious. And so you are encouraged to use critical thinking. So you don't need to memorize everything. The expectation is for you to read, digest, and write your understanding in your own words. So again, you as students are expected to share your thoughts with your classmates throughout the class, throughout the semester, whether it's online, whether it's in person, you will be asked to do so. In the discussion, there is a discussion board on Blackboard that we'll touch on again tomorrow. I think you got sort of an introduction yesterday. And so based on your pre-survey, I think some might be a little uncomfortable with Blackboard. And so we'll make sure that we get those questions answered. We really need you to cite the authors that the information you're using from. So if you have a quote or a work, piece of work from other sources, be sure to cite them to avoid plagiarizing. So you cannot copy and paste those readings unless you copy, paste, put quotes around it, put in the end of the sentence the last name of the author and the year of the reading. So there's more on citing. The Centers for Learning, who we heard from yesterday, can absolutely help you with that. And so we want to make sure that in terms of consequences, they're pretty severe. And so it's a very serious issue, and it could result in suspension or expulsion. And so I included the link here in terms of what academic integrity means for us here at UMass Lowell, and we'll send all this with you to your student email address for future reference. All right, and now I'm going to pass it over to Francine to talk a little bit about email etiquette.
Good morning again, everyone. Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit to you all about email and how to properly send email to anyone, but especially when you are trying to reach out to your professors. And this graphic here is just, a few things that you can think about as you're preparing emails and you're sending emails out to folks. 5 rules about email etiquette. And it's just some things to just think about. Again, this is not an exhausted list, but if you pay attention to those, you can feel pretty comfortable about when you're sending out an email. So make sure that you always take a really good look at your email once you finish typing it up. Go through it again, make sure it's clear, there's no typos, and you're including as much information as possible. Letting people know that their email has been received. So when someone is emailing you, and especially if they're asking for a response and you're responding back to them with the information, be careful about using acronyms. And I say that with a smile on my face because at UML, we speak in acronyms all the time. We're always using acronyms for it. Things, but just think about that, especially if you're sending emails to someone outside of UML that may not know what is SIS, what is UML, what is, different things like that. Be careful when you use all caps. Using all caps in emails is synonymous with like screaming or yelling. So be careful when you do that. And then look at ways of how you can compress attachments. Sometimes if you have a lot of attachments, and especially if they're huge, it can delay or sometimes be too large to even get your email to go through and be delivered. Next slide. Okay. And just a couple of other few tips. When you send out an email, especially if you're sending it out to folks within the UMass Lowell family or community, make sure you use your UMass Lowell student email account. A lot of times, especially for professors, if they receive an email and say your personal email is different from your name, they might not know, or they will not know that it's you. It could very well go into their spam or junk mail folder, so they may not be able to get it or respond to it. Also, give your professors a proper amount of time to reply to your email. Usually wait about 2 or 3 days. If you haven't heard anything, just a gentle reminder just to say, hey, I'm just checking back in to make sure you received my email. But if you send an email to a professor at 9 p.m. at night and he doesn't respond to you by the next morning at 8 a.m., don't send them a reminder then. Make sure you put a subject line, put a descriptive subject, okay? A lot of times, and I do this, and I have done this in the past, where I'm so quick to send out an email, but the subject line is blank. Again, those type of emails may get buried in a professor's email, and you won't, and they might miss it that way. Make sure you greet the person when you're starting your email. Hello, dear professor, good morning, stuff like that. Make sure you also identify yourself. You can identify yourself in the very beginning of the email, and definitely sign your name at the end of the email. Indicate what class you're in. Most professors are teaching a variety of classes, and they have several sections even within classes. So make sure you identify what that is. I would always caution on the side of being very formal. When you're sending your email, again, this is your professor. It's not your BFF or, or information like, or a situation like that. And again, make sure when you sign off, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you and your name. All right, so if you all will do me a favor and jump on that chat and tell me, what do you notice about this email? What do you think? Good, bad, point out different things that you might change, you might do differently. Is it okay? Too informal, yes. Bad subject line, woo, no caps. Informal, using personal email, yes.
What is SU? Like, is it like to represent student?
What is STU, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Stu, which could be his name.
Ah.
Right?
Yeah. I will also say it's not a lot of, it's just everything is bunched together. He or she didn't space it out so it could be more easy for the person to read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The subject, like, yeah, all caps. Love it. Love it. Not using school email, lowercase, no student ID number, sent from a personal email. Okay, awesome. You guys are getting it. Thanks, folks. Yep, should say thank you. Absolutely, absolutely. So you got it. Ali, do you mind? Oh, they're still coming in. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah, my favorite is Science Woman.
Cool.
No, Nilesh, it is not a model example. Although, yeah, here we go.
So Ali, thank you. Ali switched to the next email, and this one gets to a lot of the things that you all pointed out that can help the previous email look so much better. The subject line, okay, very clear, identifying what class and what section is at. And then I have a question about something. So the professor already knows as they're going in, okay, this student is looking for help. Okay, dear Professor Fiji, I'm a student in your, introduction to political science class, all right? And I have a question. And you see how things are spaced out. They're using full sentences, punctuation, and then getting into, here's where I'm having, what my question is about. I'm looking forward to hear from you. They signed off, gave their name, and once again indicated what class, and most likely this is probably Chantel's major, is actually a political science major in her year. So the professor has all the information, knows who the student is, knows what the information is that they're asking a question about. And then that professor will be able to reach back out to the student to answer their question. I think that's it. All right, and I'll hand it back over to Ali.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Francine. So we also wanted to give some tips in terms of the virtual classroom experience. So in terms of some Zoom etiquette, there is also an opportunity for Blackboard to host classes virtually. So it kind of looks like Zoom. It's a little bit different. So it's going to depend on what your professor wants, what they've prepared for you. So they will be contacting you directly with whatever form of communication they're going to use for the fall semester. If you're fully online, even if you're hybrid, there's still that online component. So in terms of Zoom, avoid embarrassing mistakes. So pay attention to your video, to your microphone, screen sharing, and try to, avoid, embarrassing mistakes during the class time. And please always keep the chat rooms appropriate, right? We're all kind of in the same boat here in terms of learning online. Be respectful towards each other, use appropriate language, no swearing, no inappropriate language like that. Designate your workspace. So ensure that your workspace is quiet, clean, and you have an appropriate background. There are downloadable backgrounds of UMass Lowell. You might have seen a couple of our OMA ambassadors use that, and that can be easily found online. So you can use a virtual background by changing that. I think someone said yesterday they usually go downstairs versus in their bedroom, just because the place that you sleep is way different from the place that you work, right? So even if it's trying to maybe sit outside or somewhere where you can try to focus as much as you can. Make sure that everything works, right? Set up your tech, check your Wi-Fi, make sure that your audio and video works. Get familiar with the software before entering the meeting. So it seems like you're pretty familiar with Zoom, which is great. But if the professor decides to use Blackboard and their video feature, just make sure you play around with it before you start. Communicate with the host. So Zoom includes the buttons for raising hands. There's also a raising hand option. There's a thumbs up option. There's a clapping emoji option. So use all of that, responding. Ask the host if you need to kind of go faster, slower. Slower, I think I would emphasize here. If you need a break, that's absolutely fine. You can just turn off your camera, take a stretch break, walk away, right? But try to keep your ear on your computer and make sure you're engaged. The host really appreciates that. We really appreciate that, just wanting you to be communicative in the chat. It makes this a lot more fun and easier for us. And be professional, so be on time to the meetings. You've all done a fantastic job at this so far. Dress appropriately, sit tall, look directly into the camera when you're using video. So just a couple more quick things. Again, come on time to your classes, your meetings. If you're joining clubs, to your club meetings, just 5 or 10 minutes would be great. Again, dress as if you were going to class in case the professor wants you to turn on your webcam. When using the chat, again, be respectful and kind to each other. Patience is key. Technology issues will happen for sure. Right? Some of us keep getting kicked out of the Zoom to get back into Zoom. The professors understand this. They're learning while we're learning. So, please be patient with that. Mute your mic when others are speaking. And sometimes, when there is a lag, turning off your video also helps in terms of making sure other people get to say what they need to say. If you feel comfortable, again, share your video when you're speaking. The professors will like that. We've been loving that, just to see, where you are. It makes it much more interactive. I mean, this is the second best of what we have of being in person. So please, being able to be formally informal as you can with us and in your classes moving forward. So now I'm going to pass it back to Francine to talk a little bit about what a syllabus is and then to introduce our guest.
Okay, thanks, Allie. So yes, a syllabus, I kind of think about a syllabus more like a contract between yourself and the professor. Here's where the professor is going to outline what is going to be covered in the course that you're taking, as well as what is going to be expected of you. And they also outline how they will evaluate you as far as through testing, through exams, through paper, through participation, stuff like that. So here is a syllabus of an actual course that's going to be taught this fall semester. One of a good friend, professor on campus, was able to share this with me. And so I took bits and pieces from her syllabus to just give you an idea of what a syllabus may look like as you enter into each of your courses. And like I said, you will most likely receive a syllabus for each of the classes that you are going to be enrolled in. So generally speaking, they're going to send out, they're going to indicate what the class is, when the class meets, how the class meets. Professor Levy's class actually does meet virtually. So this may be what you all will see for your virtual classes. She uses Blackboard for her class. She indicates when the class meets each Tuesdays and Thursdays of each week and at what time. She indicates her actual physical location of where her office is. Once we get back on campus, this is where her physical location of her office is. And because we all are remote and doing virtual, she indicated what her virtual office hours are. And she indicates how you can reach out to her. Putting in her phone number, but also through email. And you can see her preferred method of contact is through email. She tells you what textbook is required. She also had listed some optional readings as well. Then she tells you about her method of instruction. And then Ali had mentioned this earlier about classroom participation. And as you can see, a lot of a lot of professors will make that a part of your grade. So I always say to students, don't leave points on the table, okay? Here's how you can get 16 points added, out of 100. And that is a big difference from getting an A to a B to a C, even, a C to a D. So I always say you can walk in and simply by showing up, by participating, by being involved in discussions. And Ali even told you ways that how you can be involved in discussions, even over Zoom, of being able to get 16 easy points. And then she goes into the rest of the way of how she calculates your grade between testing, chapter summaries, and doing presentations. So, and then the next pages that she had in her syllabus outlines when all the due dates are and giving you more information about what goes on inside the classroom. And I think that is it. And so I'm very happy to say that we have Sarah Marks with us today, who is from our library services. Thank you, Sarah, so much for joining us. And I would like to turn it over to her now so she can talk to you a little bit about that and also answer any questions that you have. Sarah.
So thank you, Francine and Allison, for inviting me today. I'm going to start by talking about some of the restrictions for COVID because there are some important ones. But while I'm doing that, let's talk about your questions and your anxieties when it comes to using the library. And I am going to preempt this all by saying for the past 3 days in meetings, my internet connection has gotten really crummy. So I might turn off my video at some point, or we're going to try some other alternative, I don't know what. But if I start breaking up, tell me in the comments so that I can shut down the video to sort of save my internet so that you can all hear me. So let's talk about the most important thing. Because of COVID, the libraries are not going to be physically open to you to use. That means no study space, no browsing books, no computer usage, no printing. What we will have available on Mondays and Thursdays at the North Campus Library, Leiden, is an ability to pick up and drop off books. So you will be able to use your one card to pick up any physical books or books you've requested we get from other libraries. Now, That's a lot to take in. There are a lot of little things, but 99% of what the library offers you is already online. Our research search engines that we call databases are there. Support is online. Many of our books are ebooks. You might not ever actually miss the physical library other than having a nice place to study with your friends. But we are watching how the semester evolves. We might get to open later in the semester. We can't promise anything. We can't even suggest a date. There is a chance, but for now we are going to be closed. So this is your chance. Now that you know there's not going to be a space and getting help from the librarians is going to be a little more difficult. What are you most worried about? What do you need to know about to be successful? And you can type it in the comments Francine or Allison, is it possible for me to take over sharing the screen so we can look at the library's webpage so that I can show people whatever they ask about?
Absolutely, yep. You should be able to do that. If you look at the top
No,
there
it says, I can't while another participant is sharing.
Oh, then I will stop. Okay, there you go.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I have to watch the chat at the same time. This is not always easy, Zoom. Keep that in mind when your professors start making things a little difficult in their sessions. They have to click buttons to see other things. Okay. Recommended resources for research papers. So your first step needs to be looking at your syllabus. Your professor is going to tell you when they outline your assignment requirements, what kind of resources you need. If they don't tell you, you should make the assumption that they want a peer-reviewed, scholarly, juried, sometimes they'll call it something completely different, but that's the type of source they're looking for. And those you can find in our catalog. So uml.edu/library. The article quick search is an easy way for new students to find as much of these articles as possible from multiple disciplines. We will look at the database link over here on my left side of my screen, but you can see all the searches I normally do easily come up. The company that makes this for us makes a number of the databases that we subscribe to. So you don't need to click an off-campus login button. It will prompt you to log in if necessary. You can see here's my screen. I just sign in with my username, my email address and password, and it will take me right into the database. All of our databases do this. There's a lot in this collection, but to get to those peer-reviewed articles, you have right here on the left. I like to think of this under Refine Results, Current Search. I call this the toolbar. This is where you get to take control. I like to think of, there's a difference between our databases and Google. They're all search engines, but it's the bucket of what they're searching that's different. So Google searches everything, but you're responsible for weeding through it. And the nice thing about Google is that it makes assumptions about what you want, and it's generally correct, but you have no control. Here you have all the control and no assumptions. So the bucket's different. Now it's searching books, newspapers, magazines, and journal articles, and you need to give it instruction. So tell it you want peer-reviewed articles. Typically it's from peer-reviewed journals. Not all these magazines that are journals, that they're academic, have entirely peer-reviewed content, but it gets you narrower and you can review some of the results to get a sense of what's going on. Other options here include date ranges. If you're doing topics that require currency, like health, they'll want the last 5 years, so you'll want to limit to 2015. And yes, you did see 2021 listed, because we can't get out of 2020 soon enough. But what happens is that they publish things and date them ahead of time. It had to do with when these were physical magazines, printed at one point and then had to be shipped to physical libraries to be included in the library. So they would publish ahead of time. Don't worry about it. It's a fun little quirk to libraries. But here we have from 2015, this will start narrowing down our results. You can see here, we can also limit to academic journals. There are reviews in here, conference materials, reports, magazines. Not all are scholarly peer-reviewed. You have options for subjects. These are what the articles are about. Sometimes they include nonfiction, research methods. You can see more. And you can see all the things in here. You can limit to a specific language. Yeah, if you can't read Spanish or you can't translate it to English, you might want to skip it. Same with Portuguese, French, Russian. The people who are reading your paper need to be able to read whatever you're citing. Of course, geography, if you're limited to research done in America, you can limit yourself to the United States. In some cases, it can be narrowed down by state and even city. So for research for your papers, I would suggest starting with article quick search. If it's overwhelming or you need something more specific, click on databases from the library webpage. And this will take you slowly to our list of databases. You can look by subject. You can look by type, or you can search for the one you want. And we do list our trials here. I see one that says, what does it mean by available to UML? The restrictions opposed, there are restrictions on resources. So you'll notice on some of these, let me move my chat window. So let's get to just the academic journals. There are different options to get the full text of your article, and it's not always easy. So sometimes you'll see libkey instant PDF, which means you'll get it right here. And here will be the complete PDF. You do need to read it. That's something you're gonna have to do yourself, but that's what the libkey PDF means. Sometimes you'll see something that says Gale or PDF full text. That means you can get it right there. Full text finder means it doesn't know where we necessarily have it, if at all, but it might find it. And you can see it's listing 2 here. Just click on one. If it's not there, click on the other. And then if it's not in any of those options, do request through interlibrary loan. Let's talk about interlibrary loan briefly. This is a free service, but remember, we're a small staff right now because we're all remote, and we had to deal with some changes to our staff because of COVID. So we might not move as quickly as people suggest that we move, but you have to create your account. We'll talk about the books and how many people can see them at a time. Ebooks are tricky. So the first time you come to this screen ever in your entire time with UMass, click on first time users. This is where you'll create your account. You do have to create this account. The off-campus access, the login, that's automatically created, but this one you do have to register for. UMS number, that's your ID number. You can find it in the SIS system. And you do have to pick which library you'll pick up from. Now, right now, it's only Leiden. That's not going to matter. But if you're typically going to end up taking classes on South Campus, fine arts, humanities, social sciences, nursing, and education, or health and education, those will be at O'Leary Library during normal times. So click the one you think you'll end up at most often. It's not going to be a huge difference. I mean, you can get across the river easily when we're back to our normal library situation, but you do have to click one of the 2. Now I'm going to log into my account. My account failed. I'll have to figure that out. But when it does work, it will automatically allow you to request the article and it'll populate all the information based on what it has here. You will see ebooks here. So let's unclick academic journals. See if we can get some books. We don't have all of these books, but typically when we do, they're ebooks. So it looks like most of these aren't available. So you can see the easiest way to find books, though, is from our webpage. And that's in the catalog. So again, I'll do America. Now our catalog is the entire world. A couple of things to keep in mind. The print books you'll pick up, you have to request them and pick them up. You want to register your account. You do have to register your library account to pick up books. You can find the link to that in our coronavirus response link. We've put together a form so you can register your card, and then there's a video to go with it. So look under books from here to do that. But you'll see in the results, a lot say ebook. Some of our ebooks have one person looking at them at a time. We've limited how many can be checked out because we don't want you to check them out so that as many people as possible can get them. I'm just letting this load. This is my favorite company to make our ebooks. But of course, the internet is slow. All right, so you'll see the option says read online. This means you can read it right here. You can see your different chapters and sections within this book and then go right to them. You can make highlights, you can leave yourself notes, you can bookmark, and then when you're done, you're done. So you can access this content. You can download sections. I would suggest downloading chapters. This way you're not tying up the entire book. Also, it's a smaller file when you just download the chapters you need. And you can, if you're going to quote these, get the citation and the style of your choice. Your professors should tell you what style they want. If not, it might be because they're assuming you know what your field uses, or they haven't even thought of it. And you should ask them, if you're writing a paper, what citation style do you want me to use? If they tell you it's your choice, go with the one you're going to use most often. In most cases on campus, it's MLA or APA. Sometimes it's Chicago, but very few other styles are used. And when you do college writing classes, they'll let you pick in most cases. Also, one other thing, let's go back here to our databases and get back to articles, because you can get an easy citation for these articles as well. When you click on the article title, you'll see all the information about the article. But on the right side toolbar, there's an option that says Cite, and that will pop up these easy citations in the main styles also. You do need to edit these. And if you talk to your professors to learn more about citation styles, College Writing 2 will probably teach you most about this. But there's little nuances to each style. So you need to learn how to spot what needs to be fixed on these. Some professors are forgiving, others aren't.
Sarah, there's been a lot of questions in the chat box, and
I know.
Ali has been doing great in answering.
I know, I'm trying to keep up.
No, I think we've got most of them answered, but
Okay.
you know, just being aware of the time, if anyone has some last minute questions for Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much. Even I've learned a bunch today, so thank you.
Are there any that you see that keep coming up, Ali?
I think I got the majority of them.
Okay.
You know, a couple students, you know, were asking about, you know, can they get all the books from the library? And I said most, but there is one question. Alok asked, is it good practice to use, I'm not familiar with this, arxiv.org to search for, to search papers? Can there be any copyright issues or other legal issues if we use other sources?
So I'm not familiar with ARXIV. If it's a search engine for scholarly articles, you can use it. You need to cite whatever source you use in your paper. If you use it to prove a point and you don't actually quote it, but you paraphrase, you still have to cite it. But if you're downloading some paper somebody else wrote and turning it as yours, that is a problem. Your professors are very aware of this, and I've been following conversations in their emails. Do not do this. Do not do it just because you think it's going to be easy and they're not going to catch you. All of these tools that they use have plagiarism checkers, and you will get called out and potentially fail the assignments, the class, and if you do it repeatedly, get kicked out. So do not take someone else's paper and turn it in as your own. But Google Scholar is perfectly acceptable. And let me, let's go to Scholar.
There's
You
one more
can
quick
set
question.
up Google Scholar. I want to show you how to set up Google Scholar. You go to the settings in Google Scholar and go to library links and then search for UMass Lowell. And it will allow you to add in our full text options so that when you search Google Scholar, it will connect you to that full text finder. So that is the option. What was the other question you saw most often that you could answer? Did I lose people?
Sorry, I couldn't get my mouse to work. Ali has gone to the next session because she has to set that
Okay.
up. But I think that was the only one that she wasn't sure about.
Okay.
Other things folks are asking, here's one, where can I go to get help with the library in the future? And
Okay,
again,
so